Super Cider Presents, episode number 9.
Number 9, we'll give a little cheers, as we always do. Thank you guys for joining us again. Like we said, episode number 9, we're excited to be here, and we're excited that you're watching. So without further ado, I love that word, further ado.
Right.
I don't love that word, but I love saying it because it always reminds me how
Just
much
a
I hate
filler.
it. Yeah. But I like saying it in situations like this because it seems a little, presentation. But we're excited to get into it. So let's get into it, Tanner. What we're talking about today.
Yep. Cosmetic aspects of, I guess, your roofs and just other cosmetic things around your property, because there's certain policies now in the insurance industry that are excluding cosmetic damage, which that might be on all aspects of things, or it might just be something where you had reduced in your premiums to get cosmetic exclusions because you have like an impact resistant shingle or something like that. So we'll talk about a little bit of what they're claiming to be cosmetic that they shouldn't be claiming to be cosmetic, as well as some of the things that the cosmetic policy excludes, the different levels of them, and that's kind of what I've been getting questions on from both contractors and homeowners.
Okay. And to be clear, when we're saying cosmetic, we're referring to anything that's not considered functional damage.
Yep. So cosmetic is strictly the appearance of something where it doesn't actually impair the longevity of the product. It's still going to uphold how it's supposed to be performing. It just doesn't look like how it did before. Let's, for example, gutters. If you have hail damage to your gutters, it's going to appear that you have dents in your gutters, but is it still going to drain the water and channel the water away? Yes. So it's just a functional or a cosmetic thing, not a functional thing.
Okay.
So that's kind of what they mean by cosmetic damage. Oftentimes when you hear cosmetic, when it was first coming in, was because they were reducing coverage because you have an impact resistant shingle. If that's impact resistant asphalt, steel, aluminum, stuff like that, they can uphold class 4 hail rating. They'll let you reduce your premiums for you to reduce your coverage, which means anything that is cosmetically damaged, they won't cover on your roof or whatever product it is, but you won't have coverage for it in the long run. So let's say 4-inch hail comes through, they're basically softball size hail, and it bows in your steel roofing. It's not going to fail. It's going to look like crap, but you wouldn't have coverage for that. So those are the things. 4-inch hail in Minnesota is very rare, but we had in some areas this year where it came. So if you're fall under that, you can, not have coverage for something that you thought you might have coverage for.
Okay, so to be clear, you're saying I get a new roof, I go ahead and tell Super Siders I want to upgrade to an impact resistant shingle, one that has the SBS modified, hits the shingle, it won't damage and impact it the way it would a traditional shingle. And my insurance company says, wonderful. Douglas, okay, all right. I tell you what I'll do. I'll reduce your premium. I'll reduce your coverage. I mean, you have a good shingle. We don't need to cover it. So we'll go ahead and reduce that coverage. We'll give you just cosmetic versus functional, and we'll save you a bunch of money. But is it saving me a bunch of money if I go ahead and have an event? Because let's say I have a tornado. Okay, well, that's irrelevant how impact resistant the shingle is if it's getting ripped off or a tree branch falls, right through the roof. So it almost seems like a slippery slope.
It does, because it totally goes off the preference of the homeowner at that point, because most of these impact resistant shingles, they're just excluding the cosmetic coverage of it. So they still warrant or coverage for the shingle themselves. It's just that if it only is cosmetic damage, then they're not going to be approving it. So let's say you have big hail on a metal shingle, it will still dent if it's big enough hail, But is it going to fail? More than likely not. And once it fails, that's when they would approve it. So if you had a tornado and blew some shingles off, some metal shingles off, they would approve that damage, because it's not cosmetic. That's actually functional damage. It's no longer able to protect the roof surface. But if it's just something that it is making your roof look like crap, they wouldn't cover it. So if that's something as a homeowner, you're like, hey, as long as it's doing its job, I don't really care what it looks like. Might as well save some money in the process. But if you want your roof to always look good, not having that coverage will definitely put you at risk of having to replace that roof in the future.
And most homeowners, if you give them an option to reduce their premium, they're like, yeah, let's do that.
Mm-hmm.
How often do I actually make a claim? How often do I actually use this insurance, right? We always feel like with car insurance or homeowners insurance, we pay, and then we never have an event. Then we have an event, and we're like, well, we feel like we're getting kind of pigeonholed here and we're getting kind of pushed in a corner and we're not getting what we deserve. I guess my biggest question is what determines functional? I mean, I heard you, but when I'm hearing your story, you said we have a metal roof
Yeah.
and it gets bowed in.
Yep.
Logically thinking, if water needs to run off that and now it's dipping into a bow with our freeze thaw cycle in Minnesota, that seems like a recipe for disaster. And it may not leak the first year, the second year, the third year, but if I'm living in this house for 15, 20 years and I have a metal roof that's supposed to be forever, let's just say for argument's sake it's steel. Well, we know steel can corrode and rust. We know the finish could come off and flake. It may not happen today, but it will happen at some point based on this damage. So that's what I always go back to, is it really cosmetic?
Right.
It may be cosmetic today.
That's where you would, especially with metal products like that, because it's hard to tell, is that going to fail because of this? It's almost impossible to tell without actually having the manufacturer go out and look at the damage, because they're the ones who make the product. They should be the ones who know, okay, long term that's going to fail because of this reason.
Okay, that makes sense.
And if that's the case, now it's functional. And that's where I'm getting a lot of my questions, is actually with asphalt, normal hail, where the policy just excludes cosmetic damage entirely. If it's, you didn't get any discount in your premium because you have impact resistance or anything like that, it's just excluding coverage, period, for cosmetic stuff. So in Minnesota, we had this big hail. Like in Big Lake, for example, one of the homeowners who just called me had 3.5-inch hail. That's very large. They have granular loss all over the place, granular loss from the impacts of the hail. Insurance company is agreeing, yes, this impact right here caused granules to be lost, and the impact was from hail. So they're agreeing, yep, it is hail. However, the granular loss, that's just cosmetic. You know, you only have those granules so your roof looks good. No, that's not the case. Granules, one of their main, they have like 4 main reasons. One is for cosmetic, yes. If you don't have those granules, you're not going to be able to get the color that you want, because asphalt is going to be, black. So the granules can get you a brown roof, a tan roof, still like different shades of gray, stuff like that. And once you start losing those, it won't have the same appearance. It'll start fading more towards black. Another reason is for the manufacturing process. It helps making sure that they can have the adhesives, all that stuff. So they also use it for just basically being able to produce more shingles. It's just an efficient way of doing it. Third reason is for install. The more granules that you have on it, the less chance that the installer has to slip off. So it's actually for safety reasons too. But all of those basically don't have any functional aspects of it. It's just, once it's installed on the roof, there's no functional for the granules. And that's where the fourth thing comes in, and that is actually to protect the asphalt itself from UV rays. Because asphalt exposed to UV over time will start deteriorating, start becoming brittle. That's when your shingles start to crack, start to allow water in, start to leak, those kind of things. So that's where if you're losing granules in this area, that area your shingle is going to deteriorate faster than it's supposed to, meaning that it has a functional damage to it. It is going to be reducing the life expectancy of your product. And right there, that's no longer cosmetic. Life expectancy is, in its own merit, a different type of loss than cosmetic loss.
So we have life expectancy, we have functionality, we have cosmetic. And I think one thing I just want to touch on that you brought up is you said the initial install is the one time that it's really necessary for, the foot traffic or the grip, the traction. I'm going to go ahead and dispute that a little bit. I've been on a lot of roofing inspections, and the ones that are missing granules, and somebody says to me, Douglas, I have a leak. Can you go figure out where it is? And I have to climb up there, and I'm climbing up there, and all of a sudden, my boots, my cougar paws just start sliding out. There's not enough granule. I'm literally just sitting there like this, freaking out, my heart beating, and I'm like, oh my God, am I about to fall off a roof? And that
it gets a lot slipperier
It's a
without
big,
the
it's a
granules.
big deal. And there's points where there's roofs like that I won't even get on. I get on the ladder, I see it's missing all. I see fiberglass everywhere. I can't see any aggregate. No little, the granules. I'm not getting on this roof. For what? I'll drone fly over it, or that's about it. I don't care what it is because it's not worth my safety. And another part would be the thinness of it, right? So it's a thick product. Losing the granules, it's thinned out. Is that the same wind warranty? Is that the same impact resistance? There's a lot of things that go into this versus just, well, we lost some granules. It's aesthetic. It's a cosmetic. So I really second what you're saying.
And a lot of the damage that this home, I personally have not seen the property that the homeowner called on. They just said, yep, there's granule loss from the hail, and the insurance company saying that it's just cosmetic. Just that alone is not actually cosmetic. I have letters from the manufacturer themselves saying that no, if you lose granules, your shingles will deteriorate quicker. That's reducing life expectancy. If I have 30 years I'm supposed to get out of my shingles, this hail event reduce it to 15. I expect a new roof because I'm not being brought whole if I just am just left here.
And
That's
you're
not pre-loss conditions.
You're right. I think where they're finding the loophole is prove it.
Prove that it's
Prove its lost life expectancy. And it's
that's
very
where the
difficult.
manufacturer-
I hear you, but it's very difficult at that moment, at that structure, on that house with that policy, even with a manufacturer letter, because certain companies will say, we still don't believe that that's damage per this thing. So it's
Well,
almost like if we had a smoking gun that
That's
said
a pretty
this is
easy
how we
one
can
to
prove it.
dispute, though, because you can easily just leave a slab of asphalt, like a thing of asphalt out, and you can have one laid out with and without granules. And I'm sure this is what they've done to do their studies. One will deteriorate quicker than the other. And that's just common sense. If you're leaving something out to the exposure of the sun and other weather, it will deteriorate faster than if it has something to protect it.
I agree. I've been doing this 15 years.
Yep.
And
So-
I've watched the industry change every few years. And at this point, there's certain folks that just dig their heels in the sand and say, nope, that's not damage.
And
And we show them everything, and they say, nope, that's not damage.
And that's where the insurance company legally have the obligation to have a reasonable procedure when they're making their investigations and providing a denial. So if they're doing that, there should be a reasonable procedure. And if they're just saying, I don't think so, I don't think that's damage, or I don't, even if they have expert reports or the manufacturer stuff where their experts have done this research and they're just, I don't think that's the case, that's not a reasonable procedure. There's no way they can say that in good faith and get away with it.
Now, let's be fair. There's outliers. We've run into them. You and I both. What do we do? When they keep saying,
Yep.
it's not functional, it's not functional, but we know it is.
That's where I think finding out the processes of filing a complaint with the Attorney Generals and the Department of Commerce will help out. without actually having to take it to a court case, because this is clear as day. If you have the manufacturer out there, they're gonna, yeah, the life expectancy of these shingles have reduced drastically. That's why they don't warrant
Okay,
hail
so-
above an inch, because they know if it's above an inch without an impact, just normal class 2 impact rating, that if it's over an inch, there's a chance that the life expectancy is going to be reduced. Now, if it's at 3 inches, 3.5 inches, that's over 3 times the size that they're not comfortable at. What do you think? There's going to be granule loss. There's going to be reduction in the life expectancy and possibly even the functionality if it bruised the matting underneath. And that's where I was saying, just the granule loss itself is losing life expectancy and is not solely cosmetic. But if it's 3.5-inch hail, more than likely it's bruising the mat of the shingle itself, possibly tearing the bottom underneath. And the only way you can really tell is if you go out there and look underneath and you can actually see the damage underneath. And that's definitely possible, but without me being there personally, I already know just from the granule loss that's not just cosmetic damage.
I'll add something really quick. Years ago, about 10, 12 years ago, I used to chase hail. So I'd go on NOAA.com, NOAA.org, NOAA.org.com, and I'd search every day where was the recent storms, were they in my state, and where in my state. I'd look at the coordinates, and I'd go drive out there and go look for damage. And I found something very interesting, that when they report these, it's reported up to this size.
Yeah.
It could have been one stone that size. It could have been all of them that size. There could have been more, greater, and there could have been majority lesser. So it's very,
It's just best guess.
yeah. But what I'm saying is when somebody says, we had 3.5-inch hail,
Right.
no, you didn't. There was an event of 3.5-inch hail. Let's do the discovery of what you actually incurred. Because again, I've seen 1-inch hail that's as dense as a BB. Created more damage than 2.5-inch hail. I've had 3-inch hail that was arid, that wasn't dense, and hit it and just blew out. And I'm like, it was reported 3-inch hail. Where's the damage?
Yeah.
And you can see the spatter, but you can't see the evidence.
Yep.
So that's where I try to inform homeowners and adjusters that this is the event we discovered, but let's figure out what we find on this property. And then there's older damage. Let's be fair. How do we know if it was from 2005, 2008, 2018? There's certain ways to determine in metal with weathering and pitting. There's certain ways to determine in shingle if you can see the fiberglass.
Yep.
But a lot of times, I always tell people, I'm not a weather professional. I'm not on the news. I'm not telling you when it happened, and I wasn't sitting on the house when it happened. So
I'm just looking for damage. If I see damage, it's there.
I'm going to show you what I found.
Yep.
I'm going to discover it, show the homeowner. We're going to talk to the insurance company, and then when the insurance company comes out and says, you had hail, it hit the shingle, there's evidence, but it's not functional. I think anybody listening to this, I want you to understand that if you have a shingle in the state of Minnesota that's been hit in any way, shape, or form, it's my personal opinion that you have functional damage. So I would really implore that you get somebody out like Supersiders to do a full inspection, provide you the information, and then you can determine as a family paying the premium what you want to do about it.
Yeah. And the part that rubs me wrong is this is the same insurance company that we personally had a client that went through the same exact thing, and I had to send in all these documentation, basically ask them, hey, what was your reasonable procedure when you came up with this? Because I'm looking at all of these photos and I'm seeing bunch of damage, lost granules, impacted shingles. Where's your procedure rather than you just saying, oh, it just looks different? Like, where did you come up with the fact that it didn't have it? Because if you don't have any reasoning behind what you're backing, that's an unfair claim practice right there.
So we're not going to say any names, but I have to say this. I was on that roof 3 times, okay? First time I was on that roof, it was after the insurance person had been out there. I discovered excessive damage, showed the homeowner, got him back out, met him out there. They said no damage. Then I met a guy out there the third time, my third time, but second time meeting out there. And this fella I don't know why he did it. Thank God bless you for doing it. And he just says to me, this is what this company needs to see. Huh? And he did something. I'm not going to say exactly what was going on, but he did something, did this, did that, and showed me, and he says, this is what they need to see. Really? What about all this damage over here? It doesn't matter to them. Oh, interesting. He gave them what they were looking for. They covered the roof. And then it was the fight of what's the appropriate amount. Mm-hmm. You know, if something that is going for a $5 is an average rate, and they say, you know what, we'll pay you for it, but how about we give you $2.89? That doesn't even cover our costs. How does that make sense?
Right.
And they're like, no, we covered it. No, you didn't.
You covered the scope. You didn't cover the replacement.
So it's a real slippery slope, as I said earlier. This is why we really believe, folks, that Supersiders as a team and as a company really have a lot of value to offer you in any insurance claim, in any storm event, whether that's hail, wind, ice, leaking on the inside, anything like that. Please give us a call. We'd love to help you out, because I think if you're running into this cosmetic versus functional argument, Tanner really understands it. If you haven't listened too much to the whole podcast, please go back and listen. He really gets it. He can explain it well. And what it comes down to, in my opinion, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but they need to act in good faith. And let's just use the word faith. We need to believe. We need to believe, and we need to believe that they're going to do the right thing for us. So when we're constantly having to fight them and chase them and run them down and say, please look at this, please entertain this, please do the right thing, that's not good faith.
They're supposed to be acting in your best interest at all times. Insurance companies have a fiduciary responsibility to homeowners. Just like if I was to be a public adjuster, once I sign that contract, I have a fiduciary responsibility to the homeowner. Even if the contractor was the one who referred me, hey, if I feel like they're approving $80,000 to do all of these repairs, I feel like that's reasonable and they can get it done, I'm going to tell them that's enough money. Even if you're telling me, no, I need 90. I'm like,
and this isn't out of the norm. I mean, isn't this the same type of thing that happens for like lawyers and doctors and, somebody that's really able to help or hurt your life in a drastic way? They have to uphold to these, certain specific formats.
Right. Yeah, and they have to, do a reasonable investigation. They have to have those procedures in place, and if they don't, they can't just say, no, I disagree.
They need to show you in your policy.
Even, they could show in the policy, you don't have cosmetic coverage, but if they don't have a reasonable procedure of why they're claiming it to be only cosmetic,
fair.
That's not a fair claims practice.
So if you just wake up and say that's not damage, well, what does that mean?
With no supporting evidence of why they think it's that, it's just their opinion, even though there's other supporting evidence that come from experts who study this product, like the manufacturer themselves. And, that's where it really rubs me wrong, is when you have coverage for something and they're not approving it. Because if you don't have coverage for it, it is what it is, Read the policy better, I guess, before you sign your once you start sending in your premiums. But, for the most part, most insurance companies in Minnesota have decent coverage because the state requires certain things. But that's where we wanted to touch base on that cosmetic thing. If you're seeing that, there's also matching exclusions that are coming more and more popular. If these are things that you personally as a homeowner are concerned, I really want my siding, I really want my roof, I really want everything to match how it matches now, you shouldn't be having those exclusions in your policy. And if you do, you should find a different insurance company or just find out if they can add it to your policy. And if they can't, that's where you might have to part ways to make sure that you're taking your best interest in taking your business to them.
So to wrap this up, I think the best thing to inform people is go ahead and investigate your policy today before you have an event, right? Look into it. Call your agent. Ask some of these questions. Reach out to us at Supersiders. Talk to Douglas or Tanner. We'll give you some of the good questions to ask, right? The answers to the test, if you will. Reach out to the agent, see what's going on. And if you don't have what you feel you should have, change it And if you can't change it, like Tanner said, look for a new company. I mean, make sure that you have a good fit for you. And the last thing I'll tell you, as far as a golden rule, if you will, if your policy is very low, typically your coverage is very low.
Your premiums.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, your
Either
premiums.
your premiums are very low, which means you have a high deductible, and then you still have good coverage, or you have low of both, then that means you probably don't have coverage for things that you should have coverage for.
You got to pay the piper one way or another.
Exactly. If most homeowners would, I think, agree. Yeah, if my roof gets damaged, replacing 2/3 of it and it looking completely different isn't all right with me. So if that's the case, and you're paying low premiums and a low deductible, that's probably why.
Or just having an insurance company that won't agree damage is damage.
That one.
I mean, that's what we found. A lot of these policies that are, or the premiums that are very low, that's typically what we're finding. So again, if you're getting a discount up front, you're probably not getting a discount when you have an event. So just check into that. Let us know if we can help any way. And we're so thankful for you guys watching the 9th episode. We're excited about the 10th one. It's coming soon. Thank you guys. Supersiders Presents. Logging off.